Well, I really appreciate that introduction, and I really appreciate Oracle and the role it plays in our community. And it's a great day to be in Austin, Texas, isn't it? So I want to say thank you all for being here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to focus. I love the idea, and that we have a group gathering together just to talk about infrastructure. And you'll see why I'm so excited about it, because in just a second, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what's going to happen today in Austin, Texas, with regard to infrastructure, and why you've caught me on an exciting day. But before I talk a little bit about that, what I want to kind of highlight, since where we're situated, infrastructure is all around us, and you guys know that better than I do. But the impact on people often gets lost when we start talking about specific projects and things like that. But where we're located right now is in this wonderful facility, but just across the street, just across MLK, there's there's just been completion of a little bitty project that's known as the Capitol Mall. And if you know that's a joke. I didn't get a laugh out of it, but that's a joke if you actually have seen what's happened. That's a project that I helped get started while I was in the Texas Senate. You just heard I was in the Senate for a while. And just last week, I got my special tour of the new facilities and had a lot of fun getting to see what was going on there. The official goal was to save taxpayer dollars by being able to get state employees out of a lot of different costly leased space, and also to improve the working conditions. One of the buildings that is no longer got people in it, because they're now moving over to the George H.W. Bush, the new building that's on right there at the base of the mall, right across the street from the Blount Museum. The Hobby Building, I actually passed the legislation saying that the state had to, at some point, quickly tear down the Hobby Building because it was such a bad building and bad place for people to be. By the way, we had a press conference recently to announce that we were going to tear that down and what was going to happen with it. I did that together with the commissioner of the General Land Office, Dr. Don Buckingham, who I also served with in the Senate. And when it was over, we had a classic Austin moment. The press conference is over. We've announced that we're going to tear down this horrible building, and we're going to try to build workforce housing on that wonderful site in downtown. And one of the reporters, literally as I'm leaving, one of the reporters points at me and says, "What about those that are going to say you're tearing down an iconic building?" And I said, "Well, I can't help them." And when I got back to the office, I tell that story, and one of my staff guys, he says, even the rats were going, "Iconic?" So, we're going to tear that down. And the grand vision, the celebrated vision was we're going to do better in terms of what we do with the employees. But the grander vision will do so much more. That's a very important part, but it's going to do so much more. Because what we wanted to do is we wanted to activate a very moribund area of our Capitol complex with pedestrian-friendly, green space all over everywhere, so that we could connect two major destinations, the Texas Capitol and the University of Texas at Austin. We wanted to be able to bolster the cultural institutions that we had, such as the Bullock Museum, the State History Museum, and the Blount Museum of Art, by being able to tie them together. And we wanted to be able to also create an inviting outdoor public space for great events, things like the Texas Book Festival. So it really was something for me to get the opportunity to see this, something very special, to see how this vision was fully realized now. That's what infrastructure is about. It's about the people, and it's about what it does to quality of life. And these projects, like that Capitol complex, they take a lot of time in order to come to fruition. And by the way, they take longer when you have a global pandemic that steps in the middle of it, but they take a lot of time. And even under the best of circumstances, it's hard to get big stuff done because it's complicated, it's expensive, and frankly, it's slow. But big things are worth doing. And that's part of what I want to communicate. Big things are worth doing, even when they're hard, even when some folks may not want them. Big things lead to big change. And I appreciate all of you smart, dedicated problem solvers who help us make big things happen. We couldn't do these without people like you being a part of it. So thank you. So let's talk a little bit, let's get a little Austin-centric, because I'm real proud of where we are. As many of you know, Austin is making historic investments in infrastructure projects. In transportation alone, our infrastructure projects right now total somewhere around $25 billion. And they include things like we've already heard this morning. They include things like the airport expansion, Interstate 35 and the work that's going to go on there, Project Connect, which is our transit system, including light rail. And when you stop and you add to that projects of Austin Independent School District, projects of the Austin Community College, the private sector has stuff happening in this community. I think of Samsung and I think of Tesla, and of course there are more. We're getting ready to build a new convention center. In fact, right after South by Southwest, we're going to tear down our convention center and work on building a new convention center over the next 4 years. And of course, there's a lot more that's going on, much of it you all know of. And of course, the city of Austin right now itself needs more workers in our day-to-day infrastructure departments like water, wastewater, and Austin Energy. So on its face, it's a pretty great time and there's a whole lot going on. It's evidence of how dynamic that our city is, and it's evidence of the potential that we have. But we don't have the workforce to get those projects done. Our great success has created a great challenge, and that challenge threatens that success. We must develop the people, the workforce that's going to be needed to build, operate, and maintain all of these infrastructure projects. And it demands our attention. And pretty much since I started as mayor this second time around, about 14 months ago, we've been working collaboratively with Workforce Solutions Capital Area, Capital Metro, our transit agency, and the Austin Transit Partnership, which is a partnership between the City of Austin and Capital Metro to build the transit system, including light rail. We've been working in partnership and collaboration with those entities to address the mobility and infrastructure workforce needs that we have for what are really once in a lifetime, once in a generation. Come up with the trite phrase and it describes it. We have these opportunities. We put together a collaborative group of infrastructure job creators and infrastructure job trainers to give us advice on what we need to do and how to do it. The findings and the takeaways from that work have been fascinating, eye-opening, and as mayor, a little scary. Even though infrastructure ranks among the region's largest employers, infrastructure ranks larger than manufacturing and healthcare combined in Central Texas. Even though it's that big, we're going to need a lot more people. We currently have around 222,000 infrastructure workers, but we expect we will need to grow our workforce by 81% by 2040. 81% by 2040 in order to deal with all the projects that are underway or soon to be underway in the region. By the numbers, we're going to need to have 10,000 workers every year. That means we need to maintain the folks that we already have that are working in infrastructure. But importantly, we're going to need to add an additional 4,000 trained workers to the current capacity each year. 4,000 more workers every year. They need to be trained, need to be upskilled beyond what we're currently producing. Today, as I said, is a big day in Austin, Texas. Today, the Austin City Council, when I leave here, I'm headed over to City Hall, but the City Council is set to approve my resolution that will begin the process of building the human infrastructure behind the physical infrastructure that we're going to need in this community for us to succeed. And what I've said is, I want us to have a big vision. I want us to be creative. I want Austin, Texas to lead the country. And the way we start that is working with Workforce Solutions Capital Area. We're going to launch a uniquely Austin Infrastructure Academy that will accelerate the development of the needed workforce. In Austin, I see this as a seize the moment time. As I said, it's a moment in time when our community is making these historic investments. And it's a great moment when we can focus not just on the investments, but on the people, the human infrastructure behind them. It's a moment that we can seize when we can build careers at the same time we build tarmacs. We can build capacity, the capacity for future generations to live here and thrive at the same time we build roads. We can build lives and livelihoods at the same time we build rail lines. We can strengthen Austin families at the same time we strengthen Austin's infrastructure. And we need to capitalize on the moment. We need to grab the coming opportunities and prepare our community for these projects and the careers that are going to be made possible by them. We can be one of the first cities that proactively plans and brings together these physical projects and brings together the wants and the needs of the people who will build and operate them. The physical infrastructure together with the human infrastructure. And that's why we're establishing the Austin Infrastructure Academy. I see this moment as a gift for us because in order for Austin, Texas to be a complete city, a city where everyone can have a good life, a life where they can afford to buy a home here, have their children grow up here, and enjoy and take part in everything Austin has to offer, we have to give more people the opportunities to have good paying, long-term, meaningful careers that will sustain and support families. Our economic development model needs to have a relentless focus on getting Austinites into careers, including in infrastructure, which typically, as you know, has lower barriers to entry. We're talking careers that provide prevailing wages and pathways to economic opportunity for communities that are currently underrepresented in Austin's economy. We're going to be making Austin more affordable, more equitable, and we'll be touching the lives of people who feel like, frankly, Austin doesn't care about them. And so they end up moving out of Austin. We're going to have a relentless focus on people so that they know Austin cares about them and will move them into careers. For Austin to continue to be Austin, it needs to be desirable and accessible to more than just people that are working in tech or finance or those who have post-secondary degrees. It needs to be a place where someone without a college degree can also make a great life for themselves, their children, and their grandchildren. And I think that the Austin Infrastructure Academy is key to doing this. And by the way, I want to pause a second and say, we all know that childcare is a huge obstacle to people, especially women, entering the infrastructure workforce. I want to make a note. Only 15% of Austin's workforce in the infrastructure industry are women. If this were representative of the population, it'd be more like 41%. So by solving for childcare, we can create a whole new pool of talent and change people's lives. We're going to introduce our young people to this economic sector as early as 8th grade, and we're going to create a pathway for those students to be trained, to get a job, and then get into a career in an industry that they choose. Now, I want to say Austin has a number of training programs that are already great. The trade unions do wonderful work. So do organizations like the Austin Area Urban League, Skill Point Alliance, American Youth Works, and others. Austin Community College, well, Austin Community College is tremendous and it's essential. And of course, the Austin Independent School District and other school districts like the Del Valley Independent School District are going to have to be involved for us to make this work. All of these entities and others are going to help us assure that the design is highly functional and we'll develop it as we move forward. The Austin Infrastructure Academy is going to begin bringing the current good work of all of those individual organizations in the network, and we'll bring it to scale. The Academy ends up being the training hub, if you will, that will ensure that all those programs are aligned or in harmony with each other and with the in-demand skills and the job sequencing that's going to be based on real-time needs identified both by the job creators and the job seekers. And that's going to allow us to improve navigation from training to job placement to career paths. The city is going to be the one launching this program, but other entities, including others in the public sector and importantly in the private sector, can, should, and must participate in order for us to achieve what are obviously very ambitious goals for Austin and Central Texas. And we're going to be able to fund this from existing money. Many of you already know how this all works, but as the city has had for decades, there are generational capital programs already embedded in many ways at the city, earmarking billions of dollars to invest in essentials, like I've said, like the airport, water, electricity, roads, and more. These capital programs or projects are financed through debt and the operating funds, and in some cases, federal funds. The program will potentially draw on all three of those funding sources for the Academy, and it's important to remember that the federal infrastructure funding has identified workforce development as important and key and fundable. So we're going to be looking across existing programs and determine an amount to be dedicated to workforce development for our capital improvements in infrastructure projects. We're going to have a governance structure that will reflect stakeholder input and ensure accountability to funders, and an evaluation framework to assess the impact and outcomes of our important academy. And very importantly, dollars allocated from this program will stay right here in Austin, supporting vital projects within city limits and helping to generate wealth for local families. As I said, this is a seize the moment opportunity. It's exciting, and it's a key to our future. So, I'm asking people to become involved. Give us your ideas. Let us know what we need to be doing. You are experts in this area, and we can use the input. I'm asking people that are from Austin and working here in the Austin area to get involved with the Austin Infrastructure Academy, because it's going to benefit all of us and your industry too. Growing our own talent needs to be both public and private. The city is going to take the lead. We're going to provide the initial programming and funding to grow the talent locally, and the business community will benefit from that. The business community needs to get involved with it, through programs such as Workforce Solutions. But you folks are the ones that understand infrastructure. You're making your careers in that area. This is the reason I am here when I received the invitation, is I am here because what you do has a direct impact on people's everyday lives. Again, I'll end where I started. People don't always see infrastructure as a people-oriented, a human part of the quality of life. You know that it is, and I hope you can see by this, I'm focused on the human aspect of it So I appreciate y'all being here today. I appreciate what you do on a day-to-day basis. And if you can, I ask you to become involved with the Austin Infrastructure Academy. God bless y'all. Have a great conference.